Hi, boys and girls. So, this week in our writing journals, I want you to focus on writing good sentences. So, right here, I'm just going to review with you. I have my 5 finger rule for a good sentence. And as you know, I know you know, every sentence starts with a capital letter. But I also want you to pay attention to the words that you use in your sentences because proper nouns also need to be capitalized. So, if you're using a proper noun in your sentence, it must have a capital letter. Every sentence must end with an end punctuation mark. So if you're asking a question in your writing, you're going to use a question mark. If you're telling someone something, you're going to use a period. And if you're excited about something in your journal, you should be using an exclamation point to end your sentences. Every sentence must have a noun, which is a person, place, or thing. It's who or what your sentence is about. It's the star of your sentence. And every noun must have some kind of an action that goes with it. And that action is called our verb. So the noun must be doing something, and you must be telling us what the noun is doing in your sentence. So the nouns and the verbs have to be friends, which means that they have to agree. They have to work together. And finally, your sentences need to make sense. So when you're done with your writing, I want you to reread it and make sure that your sentences make sense. Check your nouns and verbs and make sure that they're friends. Okay? Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about punctuation marks. We reviewed our end punctuation, and we also talked about using commas. So in your writing this week, I would like you to try to use some commas in different ways. So I have a little model example for you in your writing journal. I did a writing sample, but I want to take a look at it and go through the punctuation marks that I used in my writing. So let's take a look. So here's my writing sample from my adventure with my mini Mrs. Gaynor. If you notice, I started by putting the date and I used comma after the day and the year. So it's May 2nd, 2020. So the comma is separating the day and the year, and it makes me take a breath in between saying second and 2020 or 2020. The weather outside was beautiful today. As you can see, I've highlighted my period so that you could see in yellow. That's the end of my sentence or the end of my statement, so it gets a period. It was 73 degrees and sunny. I was very excited, so I chose to use an exclamation point at the end of that sentence. I was excited about the weather, so I've highlighted it in pink. It felt great after a long week of rain. So I used a comma to show that I want my reader to pause, and I was excited that it wasn't raining anymore, so I used another exclamation point at the end of that sentence. I was very excited to go on my first adventure with my mini Mrs. Gaynor. Mr., Mrs., and Ms. are words that always get a period at the end. So I have my period there, and then it's the end of my statement, so I have another period after Mrs. Gaynor. My sons, Ryan, Matthew, Jack, and Liam, and I decided to go for a nice long bike ride through our neighborhood. If you notice, I have lots of commas there. As we discussed last week, you use a comma when you're introducing someone. So I was introducing my sons to the reader. And then I was also listing my sons because I have more than one, so they each get a comma after it. So after my sons, there's a comma because I'm introducing someone. And then after Ryan, Matthew, Jack, and Liam, I put commas because I was listing my children. I put a period at the end of the sentence because it was a statement. I took mini Mrs. Gaynor with me to show her around the neighborhood. I was so excited to do that, so I used an exclamation point at the end of that sentence. We saw lots of people walking and riding bikes. Again, it's a statement. It gets a period. Liam fell and skinned his knees, so we had to go back home to clean up his scrapes. I used a comma here because I'm combining two ideas to make one longer sentence. when you see the word so, that's my conjunction word. I don't know if you remember, but we watched a video on the conjunctions last week, and we always use a comma before them. So is one of the conjunction words. He was tough, though, and wanted to go right back out. So and is also another conjunction word. So I have a comma before the word and I'm also combining two thoughts. That's why I needed the conjunction. So then I ended my sentence with a period because it was a statement and it was the end of my sentence. We rode down to a park in my neighborhood that's right on the water. Again, the end of a statement, so it gets a period. We saw lots of boats in the water and people fishing. Period, because it's the end of a sentence. We rode around for a little bit and then decided to go back home. So I have a comma here because I'm combining two thoughts, riding around for a little bit and deciding to go back home are the two ideas, and I'm combining them with the conjunction and, so I must put a comma before and. It's the end of my sentence, and so I used a period. It was a very fun adventure, and I think Mrs. Gaynor had a lot of fun with us too. So as you can see, I used another comma here to combine two thoughts in one sentence, and my conjunction was the word and. So I had the comma right before it, and I was very excited about my day with Mrs. Gaynor, so I decided to use an exclamation point at the end of my sentences. So when you're done with your writing, be sure to check back through and see if you need to add any commas or different kinds of end punctuation. I can't wait to see what you write.